Hey, Flashback Friday for any day of the week! The other day we watched Dirty Dancing. Dun, 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 dun. This is my dance space. That's your dance space. Don't put your heel down. Don't put your heel down. Alrighty, so Dirty Dancing, familiar with a lot of people, was made in 1987, starring Patrick Swayze and starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. Classic movie, great soundtrack, awesome story. Super low budget movie, which can be seen in the Netflix series Movies That Made Us. Super cool story about how it got made and how it almost didn't get made. The other day, we watched The Sting, starring Robert Redford and Paul Newman, who had starred together before in what? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Okay, The Sting. When was it made? 1973. What a great movie and a great soundtrack. It's a little bit of a heisty kind of a deal. Think of Ocean's 11 a little bit, but without Vegas. And what's that one with George Clooney? Wow, it was a winner of 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Anywho, it's set in the 30s. And it's a really fun story about the two characters that get together to con a dude out of a bunch of money. It's very likable, the pace is good, and the characters are fun. It's one of the best movies, I think, that has ever been made. That's a big statement, and I stand by it. Alright, so give it a whirl if you will. We're taking a look at Wired to Create. Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind. I found this an interesting read. It talks a lot about the things that we need for creation to bloom, such as meditation, imagination, reflection, and alone time. A lot of the things that I feel in society aren't given priority. These are things that are helpful to create. It talks about getting into a flow where time just disappears because you're so absorbed and into what you're doing. That's cool. It focuses a lot on writers and their processes, which I found really interesting, as it's a lot of alone time and their own journeys into their imaginations and the stories that they then create. So that's pretty cool. The book touches on the fascinating line between creativity and mental illnesses. Another part of the book I enjoyed was the failures of successful people. We all hear about how certain people done great things, which is freaking awesome, but we seldom hear about the failures they've had along their journey up until that point. There is no such thing as an overnight success in any genre or field. It's a lot of hard work and self-discipline. So it's cool, and lots of failures, and it's cool to see these journeys along the way too. So yeah, Wired to Create. Good read. The other night we revisited Grosse, Pointe Blank, a fast, funny movie with John and Joan Cusack, Dan Aykroyd, and Minnie Driver. The story goes, a hitman goes to visit his hometown and that he hasn't been to in 10 years after he just disappeared, and the comedy that unfolds going to the 10-year reunion of a high school, seeing his old friends. Fast-paced and witty humor. The Marvellous Mrs Maisel is a wonderful show. It's colourful, beautifully shot, funny. The characters have so much growth. There's lots of different themes explored. It's set in the 40s, and Midge Maisel is a stand-up comedian. It's loosely based on the life of Joan Rivers. It's razor sharp with its wit and humor, and the direction of it being shot is just beautiful. There's so much about this show that is freaking awesome. We're checking out Make It Stick, the Science of Successful Learning. I found this a real interesting read. It was saying that retrieval is a great way to learn. So once you learn something, give it some time, and then go back to it and try and find it again in your mind. And it says that the harder it takes to retrieve the information, the more likely you are learning it, and then it will stick. It's pretty interesting. It's also said that another way of effectively learning something is to try and do it without knowing anything about it. Just jumping in and trying to do it and solve it without having any direction or any idea of what you're doing, but just jumping in and doing it. That term was called generation. It was saying that self-quizzing is a great component to learning, which is then drawing on the retrieval from the mind. And it also said that the amount of space left between each time you quiz and get your retrieval tool working is also important. So if you do it straight after learning something, probably not as effective, because you're not really pulling it from your brain, you're just echoing it. But if you give it some time, and then you have to dig deep in there, try and find out where it's at, and then that is when the learning is effective. Alright, I'd like to leave with a little excerpt from the book, which I really dug. Here it is. We are born with the gift of our genes, but to a surprising degree, our success is also determined by focus and self-discipline, which are the offspring of motivation and one's sense of personal empowerment. The single fact that our intellectual abilities are not fixed from birth, but are to a considerable degree ours to shape, is a resounding answer to the nagging voice that too often asks, why bother? We make the effort because the effort itself extends the boundaries of our abilities. What we do shapes who we become and what we're capable of. The more we do, the more we can do. You will experience setbacks. These are signs of effort, not of failure. Setbacks come from striving, and striving builds expertise. Effortful learning changes your brain, making new connections, building mental models, increasing your capability. See ya!